Hello, my name is Julian Gerighty. I'm the creative director on Star Wars Outlaws. This is a period of time in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. There's one Jedi in the galaxy, and we won't meet him.
Since you have shown Star Wars Outlaws 2023 for the first time, there must have been a lot of feedback of the game outside of the development team. Did you pick up any feedback or criticism throughout the last year and changed anything based on that in the game?
That's a great question, because in this last period, since about two months, I've asked other creatives at Ubisoft and outside of Ubisoft to play the game and to give me feedback, because I need perspective. We need perspective as a team. We need people to play the game with fresh eyes and to say, okay, did you think of doing this? Did you think of pushing these things? This doesn't quite work. So we got a lot of feedback in the last few months, and things that we could change, we have changed. So we still get feedback, and I'm still pushing for things.
Do you have a specific example?
A specific example? Yeah, I think there was an approach that we had in terms of stealth that was quite punitive, quite punishing. And we relaxed that a lot and made it much more pleasant to make mistakes. So it's an idea of losing control, or the feeling of losing control. And if you lose control, then it's chaos and not too punitive. So it's that distinction between fun chaos and no, it's trial and error and it doesn't work for me. So that's one thing that we recently did that I think is a great change.
Playing, I had a lot of fun with a card game with
Sabacc.
Sabacc, right?
How long did you spend on the Sabacc?
Oh, I spent
hours.
More than I should have. Yeah. When you developed Sabacc, what did you have to consider? I'm always asking myself that when I see those types of card games, because they resemble games that we already know, like Sabacc reminded me of Blackjack.
So Sabacc exists in the Star Wars universe. The rules are never precisely defined. So you may see it in Solo and it's one set of rules and it's another set of rules somewhere else. It's a little bit like poker, you know, 5-card hold'em versus other versions of poker. What we wanted to do is to take the essence of Sabacc and the tools of Sabacc, the cards and the dice, and make something that was deep enough to have a compelling game within the game of Outlaws. So it's an interpretation with the fixed points of you need cards, you need dice, you need a competitive aspect to it too.
When you decided to put that into the game, I realized that there is like a quest line going on with that game also, right? So how do you balance that?
It's really up to the player to decide. That side quest that you discovered is completely optional. So you could skip it and just play on other tables, or you could do it and unlock some things that are really good for playing Sabacc. And you may have seen the shift cards when you were playing Sabacc, which are rule modifiers or little advantages or disadvantages that you give other players. There are lots of cards that are spread across the world that you can find and build your custom deck.
How long did it take you to design Nyx in regards of its cutesy appearance?
So, true story, when we started thinking about the game, and in conception, so very early on, there was no Nyx. There was just K and ND5. And very quickly, at first playable, which is a milestone after pre-production, first playable, we realized that K was missing almost a superpower, you know, the Mr. Fantastic long arm into the world. So we started thinking about what could fill that superpower, what could go out into the world and attack an NPC, or let loose on a explosive barrel, or turn off a switch, or call a lift right across the battlefield so that K is punching somebody, Nyx is, or this thing is attacking. And very quickly, we found that we needed a companion. We started thinking about the visual design afterwards, and the sort of the Star Wars design philosophies, the simplicity in shapes, the recognizable, the relatable aspect to it. So if you think of design philosophy for Star Wars for spaceships, if I do that, you think X-Wing, you know? It's very, very simple. So here, what we took was the axolotl, which also helped us with communication of emotions for Nix and communicating to the player. And then comes the narrative layer where the soft values, it's cuddly, it's familiar, it's like a cat or a dog, but at the same time it's super fierce and can protect you. And the narrative layer on top of that allows you to go through the world, and instead of talking to yourself, you're going, what do you think of that, Nix? And Nix, and that's when D. Bradley Baker brings his magic, because he brings him to life, and that's the last piece of the puzzle.
Was there any feature or idea that you had to defend, where the rest of the team was like a little bit skeptical maybe, and you were like, yeah, no, but we have to do this?
Probably the team hated a bunch of the ideas, but nobody tells me. So I think the one concept that was very important to me that we had to really make sure that everybody understood how important it was constantly was the reputation system. And having these decisions, dilemmas for the player constantly, so that they were always thinking about the long game of being able to achieve these rewards with the different criminal syndicates. That's one thing where it was on the high level pitch for the game. It was one of the 4 pillars, but it was really important to remind people this is actually critically important. It makes a difference in terms of how players will play the game.
Did you have that in place from the beginning?
From the beginning. Mm-hmm. From the beginning, we had one slide. My job is very easy. It's, you know, at the end of the day, it's one slide, and then 4 years it's saying the same thing. It's one slide with this promise: be a legendary outlaw. At the time we had the word scoundrel. Be a legendary scoundrel in a galaxy of wonder and opportunity. That's the promise, and that's what we want to deliver on. And there were 4 different pillars of the experience that were the most important. So we prioritize those features when we develop it. First one was making a true scoundrel experience. And that was a big challenge for us, because Massive Entertainment and the team that I worked with, we did the Division, Division 2, and now a Scoundrel Adventure. Completely different gameplay rhythm. Division is, you know, you're going from cover to cover, you're military. Outlaw, much more like a wave, much more in the flow. It's much more relaxed, and if you play well, you're grabbing one weapon, you're sending Nix to do this, you're shooting, you're throwing it away, you're tossing a grenade. It's much more elegant in a way. Second one was exploration and the joy of exploration, the open world and the seamless part of it. Everything, you know, flowing together to appeal to you, to give you goals in the open world, but to distract you continually, whether you're in a city, in the open world, or in space. The third was the reputation system. And, you know, you live and die by your reputation. And the fourth, a really compelling story that was part of Star Wars canon. So we had to invest in the tech, the pipelines, the people, so that we could deliver on a really compelling single-player story, which for the Division wasn't our priority. Our priority was always co-op focused. So that was the day one, this is what we're going to make. Afterwards, there's a million hours of work from everybody on the team, but those were the important things.
What idea that you had in the beginning was the most difficult to implement in the game?
The seamless nature of taking off from a planet, jetting up into space, landing on a space station, leaving, hyper-jumping to another system, that all of that seamlessly, incredibly difficult.
And how did you approach that?
I approached it by saying, this is what I'd like. Again, my job is probably the easiest. And then, you know, people spent hundreds of hours going, okay, how do we do this? And I think it's a really essential feature to give you that spirit of complete freedom. You can skip those moments, but I want to play them. I want it to be seamless. I want to live throughout those moments of traversal.
What do you want players to take from Outlaws after they have finished it, and what experience should they cherish the most when they are experiencing Outlaws?
I think it's this sense of freedom. We touched upon it a little bit, and I think video games really sing the difference between video games and all other medias. The joy that I find is your decisions. This is your adventure. You may be playing a character, but it's your decisions and how you shape their adventure. That's super important to me. That's completely aligned thematically with the game and completely aligned with the player fancy of being an outlaw and searching for freedom in this galaxy. You're a space pirate. You can do anything. You can go anywhere. It's your decision. So I think that's the beating heart of this story. The other thing is, I think we've created incredible characters. Funny, scary, they're memorable characters and a memorable story. So I really hope that we've left something in Star Wars canon that's going to be remembered for a long time.
You mentioned earlier also that I think Lucasfilms games mentioned it. The timing was right, and the genre was right, and the theme was right. And I was just wondering, what was there first? Was it the desire to create a freedom-centered game about Star Wars, or was it like the crime and the underworld?
No, they were supportive of our idea, which was we want to make this game about the open world. We want to make Kay's journey about freedom as well. They were supportive of that. And of course, when you're talking about an outlaw, your stakes, the people that you're fighting against or working with, it's not necessarily the big bad, you know, the galactic stakes. It's more local to the different planets and based in the criminal syndicates and the underworld. But one aspect was super important for us. It could have gone dark really quickly. You know, we could have done the dark and gritty take on Star Wars. But it's not what we wanted to do. We went to Lucasfilm Games and went to their archives and looked at some of the philosophies in creation from George Lucas and Ralph McQuarrie, which is, you know, the movies of the 1980s and 1990s and with big budget family like Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, of course, The Goonies, all of these incredible movies that were family-friendly movies. Didn't mean they weren't scary sometimes or funny, or they were a mix of genres, but they treated everything with a lighter tone. And that's what we wanted to do. Despite the underworld of Star Wars, we wanted to have a tone that was welcoming to everybody and not repelling, you know, not exclusive.
For you personally, what was the most emotional moment throughout the development?
That's great. And two come to mind spontaneously. The first one is when we knew we could make a Star Wars game in the original trilogy. That was mind-blowing. That's a time machine to when I was a kid, and the excitement that you felt when you discovered something that expanded your mind. Star Wars is part of my culture, not my popular culture. It's part of my culture in the same way that my dad went to Oxford and studied Shakespeare. Star Wars is my culture. It's my mythology. My daughter loves ancient Greece and the mythology of ancient Greece. When I was growing up, Star Wars was my mythology. So it's super important to me. That's one. You know, knowing that I'm going to be able to open up that time machine and become a kid again and play with these toys, you know, and make my own stories and my own gameplay, that's amazing. The second was to reveal it to the world and to show gameplay for the first time. And to take the work of these hundreds of people, these hundreds of hours of great work from Massive and all of our partner studios and the collaboration with Lucasfilm Games and go, this is what we've made and it's brand new. The joy there is phenomenal. It genuinely is a privilege.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.